On this edition of Careers That Matter, I'm joined by Anne McMullin, the President and CEO of the Urban Development Institute, an extraordinary organization here in British Columbia representing developers. Anne, welcome.
Thank you.
The Urban Development Institute really is quite an extraordinary organization. You as President and CEO, what's your role? People go, oh yeah, well you're in charge, but in charge of what? Like, what are the areas of responsibility that you have to take on?
So I represent, as you say, the Urban Development Institute, which is made up of not just developers, but it's a development industry. So it's representing the commercial, residential, and industrial developers in British Columbia. And our job as an organization is to advocate on their behalf to get buildings built, very simply. And we do that through education, research, networking, events. And it's really like a trade association, except we're not a traditional trade association that we don't have approvals or designations or things like that. It's really an advocacy and an education and networking organization. And we have a very large board, so, as you say, it's an extraordinary organization because it's really extraordinary the people that are part of the organization.
So let's look at some of the components of your job. You say you advocate, so you're out there talking to politicians?
Yes. All three levels of government, both politicians, elected officials, and also in the bureaucracy. So we work very, very closely with bureaucracy at all three levels because that's where that's a lot where the work is done. Certainly with politicians as well. They're the ones that really approve the kind of the work that could be done with the government officials, with bureaucracy. And it's really about trying to find ways to reduce the burden on the industry, really, so that we can build homes for people, build offices for people, and build industrial space for jobs.
You also interact with the media quite a bit.
Yes.
So that's a different skill set as well.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And so I guess part of the advocacy and education is working with the media, as the media is incredibly important to get the information out to the public in many different ways. We all know how much the media has changed, obviously, over the years. So there's the traditional media and, of course, social media and other outlets. So we work very closely with the media. And it really depends. Right now, I'm doing a lot of work with the media as we're in this real, very much in a crisis situation where things are, it's become so impossible to build. It's just become far too expensive to build what people can afford. So we're doing a lot more of that. And the media is more interested in that story because we're seeing that, that we're not having launches. There are foreclosures. There's not as many homes that are being sold or even launched into the marketplace. So, yeah, it's a big story.
Then you have your members. You must have to meet with them and gather their thoughts and get direction from them. What's that process look like?
Yeah, so we have a huge member base. I mean, it's about 950 companies, but representing literally thousands and thousands of employees and people who work in this industry throughout the province. Like anything, I have an executive. So I report to an executive of 8, which are made up of developers, CEOs of development companies. And then we also have a very large board of more than 30 that we meet 8 times a year that really helps to inform and set the direction of the kind of things that we need to work on. And then that comes back really through the executive, and then the executive works with me and my team to decide on what are the specific things that we're going to work on. And we get our information from the industry about what the issues are and really also how to solve them. And then our job is to look at all that information, gather it together, and come up with solutions that we think are doable at a political level. And as part of our conversations, of course, is with the industry as what are the issues and where are the pinch points and where are the solutions, but also work with government and bring those two sides together and say, okay, how do we come up with solutions? And hopefully we're in more of a solutions mode. It felt like the last number of years, government was always imposing more and more policy and we're always constantly pushing back. But I do feel that because it's a crisis that we're in, is that we actually are hopefully on a more proactive and more so I would say we're on the offensive now trying to solve these issues that have accumulated over the years.
If that's all you did, I'd go, whoa, but you do more. You run, you host, you moderate events. That's a big undertaking on its own.
Yeah, I think we do 60 or 70 events a year, from seminars in which are very information-based, technical, I should say. They're all information-based, very technical. And then we have these sort of big, what I say, big luncheons 8 times a year, where we have anywhere from 500 to 1,200 people attend, and it's obviously always on real estate issues. And I often moderate those, and it's sort of similar to what you're doing with me, interviewing the person. And then we do have then we have a U40 group, and we have a number of events, and we also have social events, and golf tournaments, and but the social events I participate in. I've got an incredible team of people that work with me, but the advocacy, as you say, the media relations, the hosting or the interviewing of guests, that's what I do. So there's a lot. We do a lot. It's amazing, actually, how much work we get done with the sort of the small team that we have. There's 18 of us in total. I have an office in Victoria, in Kelowna, and then of course in Vancouver. So.
Well, and as president and CEO, you also have to manage that team and ensure that you stay on budget. So that's another one of your responsibilities.
Yes.
And when you were growing up, and you're in high school, you're graduating from high school, did you go, oh, I know what I want to be when I am deep into my career. I want to be running the Urban Development Institute. Did it ever cross your mind?
No, I probably didn't even know what that was, to be honest with you, at the time. I wanted to be a foreign correspondent. That's what I thought I was going to be.
As a journalist.
I was a journalist. I was going to be Diane Sawyer or somebody like that, Christiane Amanpour. That was my... that's what I thought I would do,
But you pursued that.
I did pursue that. Yes, I did, and I went to BCIT after UBC, and I studied journalism with you. You were there, I think, a year behind me, or I can't remember.
A year before you.
Before me.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's what I meant. A year before me, and I did do that, and I worked and started in radio, and then I went to BCTV, and it was around the time of the sort of the war in the woods and the forest industry and all that, all those big issues, and I was doing a lot of reporting on the forestry issues, and I guess too, as sort of I found the business side more fascinating, and it was actually the forest industry. It was Jack Monroe in the day, the old head of the IWA, who had formed the Forest Alliance with the former founder of Greenpeace, started this group called the Forest Alliance. And
that was with Patrick Moore as
Patrick
well,
Moore,
right?
yeah. These are names that some of your viewers may not remember, but you and I certainly do.
All right.
And they asked if I would come and join them, and I did. And I've never looked back, actually. Just to be part of, they say, oh, it's association work, but when you're part of an industry association, you're part of growing the economy, you're part of growing the province. And it is incredibly rewarding and exhilarating. I'm not out there making millions of dollars like some people, but it is very rewarding, and it is a lot of fun, and it's fascinating. And the people that you get to work with, the people that you get to interact with, the people that you get to meet at a very young age. I was working with CEOs of companies, I never really thought about it, but I did want to be at the center. Probably growing up, I did probably want to be at the center of things. I don't mean personally, but in terms of business. So yeah, but
yeah, and that actually put you in sort of an interesting intersection with the way that the province was going and our relationship with the resource sector. After that, you went to
the Salmon Farmers Association,
which
yes.
put you at another intersection.
Exactly, and did that, and that was a tough one, for all sorts of different reasons. And then I was there for 3 years almost. And then I went to the Port Authority, and that was fascinating too, because what the Port Authority at the time, it was just as manufacturing, was leaving, and the whole container issue in China coming on, and as a huge producer of goods. And the leadership of the Port Authority recognized that Vancouver had a huge opportunity to expand our container ports. But the only way to do that was to be able to borrow money to pay for it. And at the time, the port authorities were not allowed to by law. So we launched a very strong advocacy campaign with Ottawa, working with the federal government to change the Canada Marine Act that would allow port authorities to borrow. And that's what changed really sort of the face of Vancouver in terms of our ports and our what I would say our shipping industry and our and goods movements in this country. We became the gateway to Canada for goods from Asia.
And from there, you moved on to your current position.
That's right. Yeah.
It's been an extraordinary journey. What do you think it is about you internally that made you or gave you the confidence to say, okay, I'm going to turn my back on my journalistic aspirations and try something new? Because it's a risk to do so. You've invested a lot of yourself in going down that path. I mean, I worked with you at BCTV, and you were tenacious, and you worked incredibly hard. And then, boom, you changed directions. What gave you the strength of character or the ability to take that chance?
You know, it's hard to say that about yourself. I look at my own daughter who's 23, and she's tenacious and hardworking and driven, and I go, wow, where did you get that? And I think,
oh yeah, from you.
So when you see it in your own child and you think, where did that, wow, and they, oh, was I like that? And I think she's far stronger willed sort of than I am. But, I think there's part of it just comes from your DNA, and part of it is nurture. And I do credit my parents. My mother had a career. My mother always worked. She worked at the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. My father was a journalist. And they just said to us as kids, my dad, in those days, I hate to say, you can do what the boys can do. And he used to say, I don't know if I should say, he goes, and never let the bastards get you down. No, never let anyone get you down.
Right.
No, just always fight back. Not fight back, but know who, be confident, move forward. And I never actually even thought of it as a risk. I thought of it as an opportunity, an excitement, and a change. And opportunities have often been presented to me. These are always opportunities that somebody came to me and said, would you do this? And I've had opportunities that I've turned down. I just think that I'm very sporty and athletic, and I love competition. I love competition. It's, playing games and playing sports. And so I think that just comes from being who you are innately, And given the confidence, to be honest, the confidence as well with your own family growing up. I was very lucky, right? I didn't ever have any, I didn't ever have any crises in my life growing up, So as a young person, obviously as things go through your life, things happen. But I had a very stable, growing up, and it gave me confidence, I guess.
Well, I would say that you have realized your potential. And as Aristotle pointed out, that's the responsibility that we all have, to realize our potential. Because not only does it benefit you, but it benefits your family and the community that you live in. So thank you for your extraordinary contributions.
Thank you, Stu. It's a pleasure.